everyone, this is Leo from the Monkeys Making Misplays channel. Welcome to another installment of our quick intro series. Today we'll be moving on to the Brandgate glitter deck known as Fountain of Knowledge Eva. Eva is a grade 3 that was first introduced in set 5, also known as Triumphant Return of the Brave Heroes, who has two separate abilities. The first ability is Act once per turn, Counterblast 1, look at top cards of your deck equal to the number of research cards in your order zone, add one of those cards to your hand, then put the remainder on the bottom of the deck, and she gains +5. Very good for filtering, right? You get to look at a couple cards, right? Obviously, we don't know what these research cards are currently, but as we get along, you'll see what they are. And then her second ability is an auto that says, when this unit attacks, Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, search your deck or hand for up to one card with obfuscated in its card name, call it to rear. If you search your deck, you shuffle your deck. So you probably have some question here. What's a research order? What's an obfuscated? Let's start with the research order that was released alongside Eva in set 5, being Experiment Successful. Experiment Successful is a grade 2 set order that says when this card is put into your order zone, draw a card, then choose a card from your hand and discard it. If your order zone has 3 or more research cards, Soul Blast 1, choose one of your opponent's rear guards and bind it. This was the first instance of bind in Overdress all the way back in set 5, although now we've seen it in so many other decks, but this is the first iteration of it, being able to remove something pretty much permanently from the game. Then let's talk about the Obfuscate. Obfuscate is a grade 3 Keter Sanctuary / Brandgate unit, so it's another dual nation unit that has two abilities. Its regular ability that says when it attacks, if your order zone has a set order, he gets +5, and if it has 3 or more, it gets +10. So he's a 23k attacker if you can get 3 set orders out there, which is very good. Lets you go through 1 defensive, and even at the 5k, he was still an 18k attacker, very strong, right? And then his second ability said, when this unit is placed on rear by a card's ability, if your order zone has 3 or more research cards, this unit gains a crit until end of turn, and also continuous rearguard and guardian circle, it gains intercept and +10k shield. So this would be an extra 10k shield that you could just use to guard. So clearly Obfuscate's not going to see play in anything but Eva, probably. There's no real need for a 23k attacker. There's plenty of generic attackers in Brandgate. We will see some of them in this video, but Obfuscate clearly shines in an Eva deck. All right, obviously she calls them from deck. He gains a crit for being called from decks. These were the 3 cards we got originally when Eva released. These were all the cards directly tied to her, right? You might see an issue currently forming is the fact that you have no grade 1 set order. So how will you have 3 on your first grade 3, right? Seeing as the earliest you could play it is at grade 2, and that would be a fair assessment to make at this point in Eva's history. You had to wait until turn 4 to get the crit on Obfuscate, and that really slowed the deck's pressure down. Not being able to get that crit early on meant that you were really just calling an 18k attacker. So it was a 4 attack deck, but without the pressure of the crit and it still being stopped by 1 defensive, you had to struggle quite a bit. But that's where the first promo for Eva came in so clutch, and that is the grade 1 set order result of the experiment henceforth. This card catapulted Eva from a solid B tier deck to probably one of the best decks in the format at its time. Right, this grade 1 set order simply propelled the deck just by being a grade 1 set order. It gave your rearguards with obfuscated in card names the ability to not be retired by your opponent's card effects, which meant that they were protected from nearly most effects at the time. Right, at this point we didn't have things like lock or bounce really prevalent, right? Not in high tier decks. So this 1 set order was able to protect your obfuscated, which meant you got to keep your shield on board, which was insane. Then on top of that, if it had just done that alone, it would have been able to do a lot. But it had a second ability that said if your order zone has 4 or more research cards, you can put it into Soul, countercharge 1, and then get a card with Obfuscated in its card name from drop and add it to your hand. This card just did so much. It has so much text on a card it has so much value on one card that it just propelled Eva so further along. Being able to make Soul, being able to countercharge, being able to get your cards back, so you could, if your Obfuscates were just attacked and put into drop earlier, or if you had to call over them, hey, there's no worries. This card will just get it back into your hand, which will let you use Eva to call it out on board. And right here, this is where we start seeing the deck, or the Eva deck, really take shape and form into something that could be a real meta threat. But the biggest drawback is that if too many of your Obfuscates were damaged, or you weren't able to get the set orders you needed correctly, you had a hard time really keeping the momentum up, right? You only had 4 obfuscates. If you had 2 damage, that means you were playing with just 2, which was a little rough. But that is where we move on to set 8, Minerva Rising, where we are introduced to a plethora of cards for this deck. Most importantly, we are introduced to a grade 2 obfuscate. This grade 2 obfuscate simply buffed the deck by being another name you could call, and it had 2 abilities. The first one said that if your order zone has 3 or more set orders, he gains plus 5k attack, or plus 5k power, and plus 5k shield. So again, another 10k interceptor, 15k attacker, which means at a grade 2, it can attack your grade 3 Vanguard without needing Persona Ride or needing a boost. And then its second ability said that when it is called to rear by a card's ability, you can, if your order zone has 3 or more research orders, he can attack the whole front row when he would attack. So now you had the ability to remove your opponent's board super easily, so your opponent either had to use their cards to intercept early on or on your Eva attack, because hey, if you call this, you're pretty much screaming to them, hey, I'm going to use this to wipe your front row. But this deck functions more on all of the parts coming together to make a cohesive engine of searching, of deck thinning, of getting power, about putting pressure, managing what cards you have. And if that obfuscate had been the one card revealed in this set, I personally, as someone who plays Eva, I would have thought this is great, but we did get one more card, and the second card I'm talking about here is the grade 3 research order. The world is a blue research lab. This is a grade 3 set order, so now we have a 1, a 2, and a 3. This order says when it's placed on order zone, you look at top 5, and you choose a card from among them, call it to rear. It activates your obfuscate effects. So the grade 3 would gain a crit off of this, and the grade 2 will gain the ability to attack the front row, which means that your opponent no longer has the chance to use their interceptors, because you'll have this, the grade 2 will have the ability before your Eva has to attack. And then on top of that, because obviously all these research orders have to have more than just what they need to give us, it has a second ability. While in order zone, once per turn, you can Soul Blast 1 and rest 3 research cards from your order zone and give a glitter unit plus 5k. Seems like a minimal effect, but the numbers, the extra 5k can make an impact. But let's talk about some of the other cards that were also put in set 8 that might be a little less impactful, but they're still cards relating to Eva, so we will talk about them. The first one is Cerulean Heavy Gunner, that says when it's discarded from hand during your turn, if your Vanguard is grade 3 or greater glitter, you can Soul Blast 1 and call this card to back row rear. If you call it, it can't attack until end of turn. This gives you discard fodder for your riding, things like that. Not the greatest card, but it is a card that references glitter, so again, we have to mention it because, you know, that's what we do here. Then the next card that was released in set 8 that directly references Eva is a Wavy Loss, which is a grade 1 that says when it's placed on rear, if you have Vanguard with Archite or a card, Archite in its card name, or a glitter unit with Eva in its card name, you can Soul Blast 2 to draw a card, and during your turn, if your order zone has 3 or more research orders, it gets plus 5. Giving Eva a little bit of extra draws was nice during this era. We wanted to find the orders we needed, so Wavy Loss did see some play in set 8 Eva meta, which was very good. But now let's move along to the latest support for Eva, being the stuff we received in set 11, Clash of the Heroes. The most important out of this set was the new form of Eva, Poison in Paradise Eva, which has 2 abilities. The first one being an auto, that when it's placed by writing from Fountain of Knowledge Eva, you can search your deck for up to 1 research card, add it to your hand, and then you activate Persona Ride. So now you don't have to worry about not being able to find the research orders you needed in time. Now you don't have to worry about having to just get lucky, as well as being given the opportunity of being able to play the old Eva and the new Eva meant you had more Persona Rides technically in deck, as both Evas are still played at decent numbers. I believe most players will play 3 of the old one, 2 of the new one, or a flipped where they play 2 of the old one and 3 of the new one in the main deck. The ratios are usually somewhat like that, but this ability to just get your research order was incredible. You just go find yourself one of the grade 3 research orders, play it for turn, hopefully hit an obfuscate, or at worst case you still deck thin. Was incredible. And then the second auto ability is that when she attacks, you can bind a Fountain of Knowledge Eva from your soul. Obviously you'll have it because you'll write from that card. Search your deck, hand, or drop for up to 1 card with obfuscate in its card name, call it to rear, and then it gains plus 5k until end of turn. And if you search your deck, you shuffle your deck, and then at the end of turn, you will write back into the original Eva so that you can use her effects next turn. this card is incredible. I love playing Eva. It is a fun deck. It is super. It makes me have the like big brain moment. Like, yeah, like I'm smart for playing this. And I know that sounds so pretentious, and I understand. As someone who's had to play against another Eva player, we get it. Like, we know. But there was one more card released in set 11 for Eva specifically, which is Sage Adler, that says when it's put on Guardian, if your Vanguard is Eva, if your Vanguard has Eva in its card name, you can choose up to one card with obfuscated in its card name from drop and call it to Guardian, or put it into hand. If you put it into hand, you choose a card from your hand and discard it. Personally, as far as the supporting units that we saw out of set 11, I don't believe Adler was too great. I think he was pretty lackluster. I wished he got you like a set order back instead. I would definitely trade getting a set order, like one of my researches, back to my hand for another card in my hand. But an obfuscated I can just get back with the grade 1 research order, so not the greatest card here. But again, it is a card for Eva, so we have to mention it. But now let's talk about some cards you're going to see in your average Eva deck profile, Eva list. You know, whether it's top tier or for fun, you'll see a lot of these cards probably circling around. So if you're interested in buying or interested in playing Eva, keep an eye out for these cards at your locals, see if you can pick them up. We're going to start with 2 grade 1s, the first one being Bulbamine. If you don't know what Bulbamine does, it says at the end of battle it boosts it. If your order zone has a set order, you put it into soul and countercharge 1. It's one of the oldest cards, having released back in set 1. It cannot be outshined by pretty much any card, because it makes soul 8 countercharges. Most Brand Gate decks will have a set order, so the requirement to get that effect off is so low. Bulbamine's a good card. Nothing I can say here to argue against it. But let's talk about another grade 1 that I personally suggest to a lot of Eva players, and that is the grade 1 Dragon Tree unit for Brandgate, being Lloyd Exerith. I'm not going to try to say his name. I'm just going to call him Lloyd. Lloyd has the regular Dragon Tree effect where he can make a Dragon Tree marker. We don't care about that. We cared about his second effect. That says when a set order you play this turn is put into the order zone, you can counterblast 1, look at top 5, and then call a card with grade less than or equal to your Vanguard. This lets you get a double search off of the things like the grade 3 research order by being able to get a check top 5 with it and then getting a check top 5 with Lloyd, which means you could possibly hit 2 grade 3 obfuscates or a grade 3 and a grade 2. And because the obfuscates just simply say when they're called by a card's ability, Lloyd would trigger their abilities, giving the grade 3 a crit and giving the grade 2 the ability to attack the front row. I think this card is incredible. I have yet to take it out of the deck since I started playing with it. But some people say that it's very CD intensive, but it does help you filter much faster than what I think the current list of Eva is playing. So in my opinion, I would personally play it at I would play the full set so that you can find it and thin as quickly as possible. You're constantly playing set orders, so this card can just keep finding you obfuscates, or worst case, keep thinning your deck for a card. You do have to call the card in the same column as him, but that's not the worst drawback, because if you have to retire this to call over an obfuscate, or to call an obfuscate over it or anything like that, at least it's replaced itself by giving you another card, which means you're not really losing out on anything there. But now let's talk about the more mainstream cards, I guess, or more common cards you'll see in an Eva. Surprisingly, all of these cards are grade 2. We have a Blitz order, a set order, and then 2 normal units. Let's start with the Blitz order, as it's pretty weird to hear of Blitz orders besides just the Elementaria. But the Blitz order we are going to talk about here is Fluctuate Buster Barrage, which is a grade 2 set or Blitz order that says choose up to 2 grade 2 or greater unit cards in their different card names from drop, call in the Guardian Circle, and then choose one of your units and it gives plus 10k. So why do people play this in Eva? Well, because you can call the grade 3 obfuscate and you can call the grade 2 obfuscate, and that means this card is a 30k shield, right? If a deck has guard restrictions, which says you can't call Sentinels or you can't call cards from hand or anything like that, Blitz orders can pretty much get around that, having an option to just get a 30k shield for pretty much free, right? This has no cost, and your obfuscates are probably going to end up in drop. They get targeted very quickly, so we kind of understand that those cards will be put into drop. I've seen people play either 1 or 2 in their list as just kind of like, oh, I had a flex spot, so I put this in there. I think it's pretty good. I think I like it being able to have a 30k guard that gets around pretty much most guard restrictions is pretty good. Next, let's talk about one of the normal units in Assembler that says when it's placed on rear, you can Soul Blast 1. Look at top 7. It's top 7 or top 5. Oh, it'll be in the video. And you can find a set order from among them and add it to your hand. Then, if your unit was called by a card's ability, it gains boost until end of turn. So, you're able to boost your Obfuscate with a grade 2, which means your grade 3 Obfuscate will be 33k, and your grade 2 Obfuscate will be 25k. Pretty good, being able to just filter for more set orders to be able to keep your engine going is very strong. And now let's talk about the most common card in the current Eva list, which is the combination of Habitable Zone, which is the cycler for Brandgate, and Refablishment Stock. So, Habitable Zone, let's start with him. He can, as he's a cycler, when he's discarded during the ride phase, you can Soul Blast 1, bottom him, draw a card. But if you have Persona Road this turn, when he's placed on rear, you can Counterblast 1, search your deck for up to 1 set order, add it to your hand, and this turn you're allowed to play 2 set orders, ignoring the cost of the next set order you play. The set order you will search off of Habitable Zone is Refablishment Dock, which is another grade 2 set order that says play this with CB1, but you'll be ignoring that cost because of Habitable Zone. When it's put into the order zone, you draw a card, and all of your grade 2 reguards gain boost. You'll see, obviously you see here that now there's a reason they play so many grade 2s. So you play things like Habitable Zone, you play things like Assemblar. Obviously the grade 2 Obfuscate is played in most lists. So you're kind of just using them to create giant columns, right? If you can boost a grade 3 Obfuscate with a grade 2 Obfuscate, that makes a 38k column, which is very, very big and doesn't require any extra power boosts, right? Or you just put a 10k behind them, making it so you don't have to play grade 1s. I've tried this version of the deck a bit, but I just love the Lloyd deck thinning version so much more. But I do know that the most common playstyle for this deck is with the Habitable Zone and Refablishment Dock, so can't really argue against it. These are all the cards in or related to Eva. I love playing Eva. I've been playing this deck since it released back in set 5. I think it's a lot of fun. It can get a little boring, but it is still fun to play. So I would highly recommend it if you want to play something that's maybe a little bit more challenging than some of your average overdress decks. We also hit 100 subscribers, so that's incredible. We are going to... so far from the poll, it seems that people want the glitter lore. I'm probably going to keep that up until Sunday, I'll cut it off then and decide and see what people have decided. But it looks like people want the glitter lore, and I'm okay with that because I love reading up on the lore. Although it's not very well translated, unfortunately, but there is a translation out there, and if worst comes to shove, I'll have to just find a translator myself or hit up old Google Translate. But I'll probably be doing it in like an episodic series because they are divided up into episodes, and I'll just release them little by little, and we can enjoy that there. But with that, I'll leave you guys. Thank you all for watching. This has been Leo. Have a blessed day.